Captain Martinez stepped through the reinforced doors of Forward Operating Base Kessler with the confidence that came from 6 years of tactical operations across 3 continents. The morning briefing would be routine, he assumed, another standard deployment coordination where his experience with urban warfare would guide whatever junior planning officer had drafted the preliminary assault strategy. His boots echoed against polished concrete as he navigated corridors lined with communication equipment humming in the background, the familiar sounds of a well-functioning military installation where serious decisions shaped regional security. The briefing room contained a dozen officers arranged around a rectangular table covered with detailed topographical maps, satellite imagery, and tactical assessments that immediately caught Martinez's attention with their unusual complexity. Before he could settle into his customary position near the head of the table, a woman in combat fatigues without visible rank insignia moved to the front of the room and began distributing revised operational parameters that bore yesterday's timestamp, but contained intelligence Martinez had never encountered. Her voice carried absolute authority as she outlined enemy positions with precision that suggested months of surveillance, detailing timing windows measured in minutes rather than hours and coordination requirements involving assets Martinez hadn't known were available in this sector. She referenced terrain advantages with the specificity of someone who had personally reconnoitered every approach route, tactical vulnerabilities that standard reconnaissance typically missed, and strategic implications extending far beyond the immediate operational theater. Martinez felt his initial skepticism transform into outright dismissal as she continued presenting what he considered an overcomplicated approach to what should have been a straightforward engagement. Her analysis included variables he deemed unnecessary, contingencies for scenarios he considered unlikely, and coordination protocols that seemed designed more for theoretical exercise than practical implementation. When she paused to reference communication networks he'd never accessed, his doubt crystallized into professional disagreement. Speaking across the room with the tone he reserved for correcting junior officers, Martinez questioned her assessment of enemy capabilities and challenged her timeline projections as unrealistic given standard operational constraints. He pointed to conventional approaches that had proven successful in similar terrain, emphasized the value of established tactical doctrine over experimental methodology, and suggested that her complex coordination requirements introduced unnecessary risk factors into what could be accomplished through proven techniques. The woman listened without interruption, then responded by presenting detailed intelligence about enemy communications intercepts from the past 72 hours, movement patterns observed through multiple surveillance platforms, and strategic coordination with hostile forces operating in adjacent sectors. Her rebuttal included specific details about enemy leadership structure, tactical preferences based on previous engagement analysis, and logistical constraints that would influence their response timing in ways Martinez hadn't considered. When Martinez pressed his objections further, citing his operational experience and questioning her familiarity with actual combat conditions, she assigned him the crucial role of coordinating fire support timing with ground advancement, a responsibility that required split-second decision-making based on real-time intelligence assessment. The assignment came with access codes for communication networks he'd been unaware existed at this base, targeting protocols that suggested coordination with assets operating at classification levels above his current clearance, and contingency procedures that indicated planning depth extending weeks beyond the immediate operation. Around the table, other officers demonstrated subtle deference to her authority that Martinez interpreted as excessive courtesy rather than genuine respect for command structure. Sergeants nodded when she referenced previous operations, lieutenants took detailed notes on tactical adjustments she recommended, and the base communications officer confirmed network access for coordination protocols Martinez realized were already established rather than newly implemented for this mission. By the time you've witnessed situations where military protocol clashed with individual assumptions, you've probably realized how quickly professional dynamics can shift when true authority reveals itself. Whether you're stationed somewhere that demands constant tactical awareness, or you've simply observed how respect gets earned rather than assumed, these moments of recognition always carry lessons about leadership that extend far beyond any single operation. Her final instructions included coordination timing measured in seconds rather than minutes, communication procedures that assumed familiarity with assets Martinez was only beginning to understand, and tactical flexibility requirements that suggested this operation carried implications for regional stability extending months into the future. As other officers began filing out to prepare their units for deployment, Martinez found himself holding operational parameters that challenged every assumption he'd brought into the briefing room, along with the growing realization that his initial dismissal might have been premature. The complexity of her tactical planning became apparent as he reviewed communication protocols designed for contingencies he hadn't anticipated, coordination requirements that suggested intimate knowledge of enemy capabilities he was only beginning to appreciate, and strategic objectives that connected this single operation to larger regional security concerns that had previously escaped his attention. Her authority had manifested not through rank display or verbal assertion, but through demonstrated expertise that left him questioning his readiness for the responsibility she'd assigned, while recognizing that mission success would depend entirely on precision execution of her strategic vision. The pre-mission briefing commenced 30 minutes before dawn, with regional security implications that extended far beyond what Martinez had anticipated from standard tactical operations. The woman positioned herself at the center of multiple display screens showing real-time intelligence feeds from surveillance platforms he'd assumed were unavailable at this operational level. Satellite imagery updated within the past 6 hours rather than the typical 48-hour delay, and communication networks linking directly to strategic command elements operating across 3 time zones. Her presentation revealed enemy capabilities that challenged conventional tactical assumptions, including electronic warfare equipment capable of disrupting standard communication protocols, coordinated movement patterns suggesting professional military training rather than a regular militia structure, and logistical support networks indicating external state sponsorship that elevated this engagement from local intervention to potential international incident. The stakes demanded precision execution with zero tolerance for improvisation or tactical deviation from carefully orchestrated timing sequences. Martinez absorbed intelligence about terrain advantages the enemy had been developing for months, including using prepared fighting positions with overlapping fields of fire, supply routes protected by natural obstacles that would channel any conventional approach into predetermined killing zones, and escape corridors leading to sanctuary areas where pursuit would create diplomatic complications with neighboring sovereign territory. Her analysis identified windows of vulnerability measured in minutes rather than hours, requiring coordination between multiple asset types that Martinez realized demanded expertise he was only beginning to comprehend. During the equipment check phase, Martinez approached Sergeant Williams and Lieutenant Foster with concerns about following tactical plans that seemed unnecessarily complex for what he considered a straightforward engagement. He questioned whether their mysterious briefing officer possessed actual combat experience or merely theoretical knowledge gained through staff positions, wondered aloud about the wisdom of abandoning proven tactical approaches in favor of untested coordination protocols, and suggested they prepare alternative procedures in case her elaborate timing requirements proved unworkable under combat conditions. Williams exchanged glances with Foster before mentioning that the communication networks they'd been assigned access to required clearance levels typically reserved for joint operations involving special activities, targeting protocols that suggested coordination with assets operating under different rules of engagement than standard infantry units, and timing requirements that indicated simultaneous operations occurring across multiple geographic areas beyond their immediate tactical zone. The complexity suggested planning depth that extended far beyond what any single base could coordinate without higher-level strategic support. Communication systems activation revealed the woman's direct access to command networks that bypassed traditional chain-of-command protocols, real-time intelligence feeds from platforms Martinez couldn't identify based on their technical specifications, and coordination authority with air assets, artillery support, and electronic warfare capabilities that required approval from strategic rather than tactical command levels. Her communications used authentication codes that connected her directly to operational centers he'd heard referenced but never accessed during his 6 years of service. 40 minutes into the deployment phase, enemy positions shifted exactly as she had predicted during her briefing, moving from defensive positions to forward reconnaissance exactly 17 minutes after sunrise as she had specified, repositioning their heavy weapons platforms to locations she had identified on maps marked with timestamps from previous surveillance operations, and activating electronic countermeasures at precisely the frequency ranges she had warned would interfere with standard radio communication, but not the encrypted networks she had provided for their use. Her intelligence analysis proved accurate in ways that transformed Martinez's skepticism into grudging recognition that mission success depended entirely on precision timing she had orchestrated through months of preparation rather than days of standard planning. The enemy's tactical responses followed patterns she had anticipated. Their electronic warfare capabilities operated within parameters she had already countered through alternative communication protocols, and their movement timing created vulnerability windows that existed only because she had identified the precise coordination sequences that would exploit their tactical limitations. First phase execution revealed her understanding of strategic implications that connected this single operation to regional stability concerns involving multiple nations, economic interests that extended beyond military considerations into international trade relationships, and political consequences that would influence diplomatic relationships for years beyond the immediate tactical success or failure. Her tactical decisions balanced immediate mission requirements against strategic objectives that Martinez realized required clearance and coordination authority far above his current operational level. The precision of her tactical coordination became undeniable as enemy responses validated every element of her intelligence assessment. Communication protocols functioned exactly as she had specified despite electronic warfare attempts to disrupt them, and timing sequences created opportunities for advancement that existed only within the narrow windows she had calculated through analysis. Martinez was beginning to understand required resources and expertise available only to specialized command positions within strategic rather than tactical organizational structures. As the first phase concluded successfully with 0 casualties and complete achievement of initial objectives, Martinez found himself executing fire support coordination with timing precision that depended entirely on intelligence preparation he had initially dismissed as overcomplicated, using communication networks that connected him to command authority levels he had never accessed, and recognizing that his role in this operation succeeded only because someone with extraordinary tactical expertise had designed every element of the coordination sequence he was now implementing with growing appreciation for capabilities he had severely underestimated. The critical decision point arrived during the second phase advance when enemy defensive positions shifted configuration in response to Allied movement, creating what Martinez recognized as a standard tactical opportunity for immediate assault, while the woman simultaneously ordered a coordinated withdrawal to secondary positions for regrouping and timing adjustment. Her instruction came through encrypted communication channels with specific coordinates for fallback positions that would delay their advance by 47 minutes, precise timing that Martinez considered excessive caution in the face of obvious enemy vulnerability. Standing in terrain that offered clear tactical advantage over enemy positions now exposed by their repositioning, Martinez evaluated the situation through 6 years of combat experience that suggested immediate action rather than complex coordination delays. The enemy had moved their heavy weapons to positions that created gaps in their defensive coverage, exposed supply lines that could be severed through direct assault, and left communication equipment vulnerable to capture that would provide intelligence value far exceeding what could be gained through the elaborate coordination sequence she had outlined during their previous briefing. Martinez activated his unit communication system and countermanded her withdrawal order, directing his team to advance through the gap in enemy defensive positions while directing supporting units to provide covering fire for immediate exploitation of tactical opportunity. His decision bypassed the coordination protocols she had established, ignored timing sequences designed for integration with assets operating in adjacent sectors, and abandoned contingency procedures that had been developed for scenarios Martinez considered unlikely given current enemy positioning and capabilities. The command confusion created by Martinez's contradictory orders spread through communication networks as squad leaders attempted to reconcile conflicting instructions from tactical coordination and direct unit command. Support elements questioned which fire mission priorities to execute when timing sequences no longer aligned with movement patterns. And logistics personnel found themselves coordinating supply movements for two different tactical approaches that required incompatible positioning and resource allocation across multiple operational zones. Within 18 minutes of Martinez's tactical revision, enemy response forces activated countermeasures that the woman had specifically warned would occur if Allied units advanced without proper coordination timing. Hidden reserve positions opened coordinated fire on Martinez's exposed flanks. Electronic warfare systems disrupted his communication networks exactly as she had predicted during briefing sessions he had dismissed as overcomplicated scenario planning. And enemy reinforcement units moved to cut off retreat routes through approach corridors that remained secure only while original timing sequences maintained coordination with supporting elements. Martinez found his team pinned down by crossfire from positions that hadn't appeared on standard reconnaissance reports, facing electronic interference that prevented communication with supporting units who were executing different tactical approaches based on the coordination protocols he had abandoned, and surrounded by enemy forces whose movement patterns suggested they had anticipated exactly the type of conventional assault Martinez had considered obviously correct given apparent tactical opportunities that had proven to be elaborate deception operations. The vulnerable position his alternate approach had created required immediate extra-action coordination that exceeded capabilities available through standard tactical communication networks. Asset coordination involving air support elements operating under different command authority than ground units. And timing precision that demanded integration between multiple service branches with varying response protocols and engagement authorities that Martinez realized extended far beyond his operational clearance level. Through radio communications penetrating the electronic interference that had disabled his standard networks, the woman's voice directed coordinated extraction operations involving assets Martinez hadn't known were available in this sector. Close air support appeared within 6 minutes despite weather conditions that typically prevented fixed-wing operations. Artillery fire missions coordinated with precision timing that created safe corridors through enemy positions while maintaining supporting fire for units executing different tactical approaches simultaneously. And electronic warfare countermeasures neutralized enemy communication disruption through capabilities that suggested strategic rather than tactical level coordination. Authority. Her seamless coordination redirected multiple specialized units to extract Martinez and his team while maintaining mission objective achievement through alternative tactical approaches that had been prepared as contingencies for exactly the type of scenario Martinez's improvisation had created. Air assets provided covering fire while ground units maneuvered to secure extraction routes. Electronic warfare specialists restored communication networks through frequency management that required coordination with strategic command elements. And medical evacuation capabilities positioned themselves for casualty treatment that fortunately proved unnecessary due to timing precision that minimized exposure to enemy fire. Subordinate officers monitoring tactical communication networks began questioning Martinez's judgment as radio traffic revealed the sophisticated coordination required to compensate for his tactical deviation, the strategical evil asset coordination necessary to prevent mission failure caused by his abandonment of established protocols, and the extraordinary command authority demonstrated by someone he had repeatedly challenged despite growing evidence that her expertise exceeded anything he had previously encountered during his operational career. During extraction coordination, radio communications revealed her direct command authority over specialized assets that operated under different rules of engagement than conventional ground forces, coordination capabilities with joint service elements that required strategic rather than tactical command clearance, and access to real-time intelligence from platforms that Martinez realized provided comprehensive battlefield awareness extending far beyond what any single operational unit could maintain through organic capabilities alone. The extraction succeeded through tactical coordination that demonstrated capabilities Martinez was beginning to understand represented command authority several levels above his current position. Expertise developed through specialized training and operational experience that far exceeded standard tactical officer development, and strategic perspective that connected immediate tactical decisions to long-term regional security requirements that demanded coordination with political and economic considerations beyond military operational parameters. As his team reached secure positions, Martinez confronted the reality that his tactical judgment had nearly compromised mission success, endangered personnel under his command through decisions based on incomplete understanding of strategic implications, and demonstrated professional limitations that had been compensated for only through extraordinary intervention by someone whose command capabilities he had consistently underestimated despite mounting evidence that his initial assessment had been fundamentally incorrect about her authority, expertise, and responsibility for overall mission coordination and success. The enemy counterattack commenced 43 minutes after Martinez's extraction with coordinated precision that threatened to overwhelm the entire operational theater through simultaneous assaults on 3 separate fronts. Electronic warfare campaigns designed to isolate Allied units from command coordination, and mortar bombardments targeting supply routes that would prevent reinforcement or resupply for units already engaged in forward positions. Intelligence reports indicated enemy reserve forces numbering in the hundreds rather than the dozens anticipated through standard reconnaissance, equipped with anti-aircraft systems that could deny air support and heavy weapons platforms capable of defeating armored vehicles that formed the backbone of Allied defensive capabilities. The woman moved to a communication console equipped with secure terminals connecting directly to division-level command structures, satellite communication links that bypass theater-level coordination to reach strategic command elements, and real-time intelligence feeds from surveillance platforms operating across multiple geographic regions that provided comprehensive battlefield awareness extending hundreds of kilometers beyond the immediate operational area. Her response required coordination between air support elements based at installations across 3 different countries, artillery assets operating under varying rules of engagement depending on proximity to civilian populations, and special operations units whose deployment required approval from strategic rather than tactical command authority. Martinez positioned himself where he could observe her communication procedures as she simultaneously coordinated with division operations centers, joint service coordination elements, and strategic intelligence platforms while maintaining direct tactical control over units engaged in combat operations across multiple fronts. Her conversations used authentication codes and operational terminology that indicated command relationships extending far above theater-level coordination, planning authority for operations involving international cooperation agreements, and access to classified intelligence that shaped strategic decision-making at levels Martinez had never encountered during his 6 years of operational experience. Through encrypted communication networks, she directed air support missions involving close air support aircraft operating from bases Martinez hadn't known were coordinating with this operation, strategic bomber assets repositioned to provide fire support that required diplomatic clearance for weapons employment in proximity to international boundaries, and electronic warfare aircraft that neutralized enemy communication systems through capabilities that suggested coordination with intelligence. Collection operations extending far beyond the immediate tactical situation. Her tactical decisions balanced immediate operational requirements against strategic implications that could influence regional stability for years beyond the current engagement, economic considerations involving international trade relationships that depended on secure transportation corridors, and diplomatic consequences that required coordination with civilian government agencies whose involvement Martinez was beginning to realize had been established months before this operation began rather than developed in response to current tactical requirements. The intelligence gap created by Martinez's earlier defiance emerged as a critical factor when enemy forces exploited coordination timing that had been disrupted. By his improvised tactical approach, positioning reserve units in locations that would have been denied to them if original timing sequences had been maintained, and activating prepared defensive positions that remained viable only because Allied coordination had been compromised by tactical adjustments that abandoned intelligence-based positioning for conventional assault approaches. Martinez realized his tactical deviation had created vulnerability windows that enemy commanders had anticipated and prepared to exploit, communication delays that prevented coordination with supporting units operating according to different tactical timelines, and asset positioning that left Allied forces exposed to counterattack approaches that had been identified and countered in original planning but became viable again when coordination sequences were abandoned for improvised tactical solutions that ignored intelligence preparation and strategic coordination requirements. Despite the complications created by Martinez's earlier decisions, the woman's contingency planning compensated for tactical errors without assigning public blame or identifying specific command failures that had contributed to operational complexity. Her communication with higher command elements focused on resource requirements and coordination timelines rather than performance evaluation or responsibility assignment, maintaining operational focus on mission success while protecting career implications for personnel whose decisions had created additional challenges that required strategic-level intervention to resolve. Base communications are revealed her involvement in operation planning extending 18 months into the past, coordination with intelligence collection operations that had shaped target selection and timing determination, and strategic preparation that connected this single engagement to larger regional security objectives involving multiple nations and extending years into future strategic planning. Her authority encompassed not merely tactical coordination, but strategic planning responsibility that explained the complexity of coordination protocols Martinez had initially dismissed as unnecessarily elaborate for standard military engagement. Artillery coordination demonstrated her command relationship with fire support elements operating across multiple geographic areas, timing precision that required integration between different service branches with varying communication protocols and engagement procedures, and targeting authority that extended beyond immediate tactical requirements to include strategic objectives whose achievement demanded coordination with civilian agencies and international cooperation agreements that shaped rules of engagement and operational limitations. Electronic warfare countermeasures, she directed neutralized enemy communication systems through capabilities that required strategic rather than tactical command approval, coordination with intelligence collection platforms whose operations demanded diplomatic clearance for surveillance activities in proximity to international boundaries, and technical expertise that suggested specialized training and operational experience extending far beyond standard tactical officer development programs. The multi-asset coordination she orchestrated prevented escalation to international incident status through tactical decisions that maintained engagement within geographic and political boundaries that preserved diplomatic relationships, weapon employment that avoided civilian infrastructure whose destruction would create economic consequences extending beyond military considerations, and timing that permitted enemy withdrawal to sanctuary areas rather than complete destruction that would require explanation to international monitoring organizations. Martinez witnessed strategic decision-making that connected immediate tactical choices to long-term regional security requirements, economic implications that influenced rules of engagement and target selection, and diplomatic considerations that shaped operational planning in ways he was beginning to understand required command authority and strategic perspective that extended far beyond tactical coordination into strategic planning responsibility for operations whose success influenced national security interests extending years beyond immediate military objectives. Her tactical brilliance manifested through coordination capabilities that demonstrated command relationships with assets and authorities Martinez had never encountered, strategic perspective that connected tactical decisions to long-term security requirements, and expertise developed through specialized training and operational experience that clearly extended far beyond anything he had previously recognized or understood about the scope of her responsibilities and the level of command authority she represented within strategic rather than tactical organizational structures. The post-mission debrief convened in a secure conference room where Martinez expected routine after-action assessment but instead encountered a gathering that included division-level command personnel whose presence indicated significance extending far beyond standard tactical evaluation. Colonel Patterson entered accompanied by personnel Martinez recognized from strategic planning elements, intelligence coordination offices, and joint service liaison positions that suggested this operation had commanded attention from command structures he'd assumed operated independently of tactical-level engagements like the one he'd just completed. Colonel Patterson's opening statement identified the woman who had coordinated their mission as Lieutenant Colonel Sarah Chun, tactical operations commander responsible for strategic planning coordination across multiple geographic regions, operational integration between conventional and specialized units, and intelligence preparation for engagements whose success influenced regional stability measures that connected to national security objectives extending months into future strategic planning cycles. Her position encompassed authority Martinez had never encountered during his 6 years of service, responsibility for coordination that shaped strategic rather than tactical decision-making, and operational expertise developed through specialized training programs that explained capabilities he had consistently underestimated throughout their entire mission coordination. Chen's service record revealed special operations background, including advanced tactical training, command positions during classified operations that had earned multiple commendations for strategic innovation under combat conditions, and recognition for developing coordination protocols that had been adopted as standard procedures for joint service operations involving complex asset integration and international cooperation requirements. Her expertise had been developed through operational experience that included coordination with allied military forces, civilian government agencies, and intelligence collection operations that shaped strategic understanding of regional security threats and opportunities. The division intelligence officer presented Chen's strategic analysis of regional security trends extending 18 months into the past, threat assessment coordination with intelligence agencies whose findings had influenced strategic planning decisions, and operational preparation that had identified this specific engagement as critical to preventing escalation to international incident status. Her tactical innovation during mission planning had created coordination protocols now being evaluated for adoption across multiple operational theaters where similar strategic coordination challenges required integration between diverse asset types and command authorities. Martinez learned that Chun had specifically requested him for this operation despite his relatively junior status, based on performance evaluations indicating potential for strategic thinking development and leadership capabilities that could benefit from exposure to complex coordination requirements. His selection had been deliberate rather than routine assignment, chosen for operational experience that could be enhanced through observation of strategic-level coordination and tactical decision-making that connected immediate operational requirements to long-term regional security objectives. Colonel Patterson explained that Chen's recommendation had protected Martinez from disciplinary review following a previous incident where his tactical decisions had created coordination complications requiring strategic-level intervention to resolve. Her assessment identified his tactical thinking as valuable, but requiring development through exposure to strategic perspective, coordination experience that would broaden his understanding of military operations beyond conventional tactical approaches, and mentorship that would prepare him for command responsibilities involving multi-asset coordination and strategic planning integration. The regional implications of their mission success became apparent through briefing materials that connected tactical achievement to diplomatic relationship preservation, economic stability maintenance for transportation corridors critical to international trade, and strategic deterrence that influenced hostile activity planning across multiple geographic areas. Chen's tactical innovation had prevented regional conflict escalation that could have required massive military intervention, created international incident requiring diplomatic resolution, and threatened economic relationships that supported strategic partnerships extending beyond immediate military cooperation. Martinez realized that Chun had absorbed complete responsibility for his public insubordination during mission coordination without identifying specific command failures in official documentation, protecting his career reputation while ensuring mission success through alternative coordination approaches that compensated for tactical complications his decisions had created. Her after-action reporting focused on operational lessons and strategic coordination improvements rather than personnel evaluation or performance criticism that could have influenced his career advancement opportunities. Division-level recognition for Chen's strategic coordination included commendation for preventing international incident through tactical innovation, citation for developing coordination protocols that enhance joint service cooperation capabilities, and recommendation for assignment to strategic planning positions where her expertise could influence operational development across multiple geographic regions. Her tactical success had earned attention from strategic command elements whose oversight shaped military planning for operations involving international cooperation and regional security maintenance. The conversation with Chun that followed official briefings occurred in her temporary office where Martinez encountered personal insight into strategic thinking development and career progression through military organizational structures. Her approach to officer development emphasized learning through challenging assignments that exposed conventional thinking to strategic perspective. Tactical experience broadened through coordination with diverse asset types and command authorities, and professional growth through mentorship relationships that prepared promising officers for increased responsibility and complex coordination requirements. Chun explained her investment in developing tactical officers whose potential could be enhanced through strategic perspective, coordination experience that prepared them for command positions involving multi-asset integration, and exposure to operational planning that connected tactical decisions to strategic objectives. Her mentorship approach identified officers whose conventional thinking could benefit from strategic coordination experience, tactical capabilities that could be enhanced through complex operational exposure, and leadership potential that required development through challenging assignments and professional guidance. Her assessment of Martinez's potential focused on tactical thinking that demonstrated adaptability despite initial resistance to complex coordination, leadership capabilities that could be developed through strategic exposure, and professional attitude that suggested capacity for growth through challenging assignments and constructive criticism. The operation had been designed as developmental experience rather than merely tactical coordination, providing exposure to strategic decision-making and complex coordination that would prepare him for advanced responsibility and enhanced operational understanding. Martinez understood that his entire participation in this operation had been structured as mentorship opportunity rather than routine assignment, designed to develop strategic perspective through exposure to complex coordination requirements, enhance tactical understanding through observation of strategic decision-making, and prepare him for career advancement through demonstrated capability to adapt conventional thinking to strategic operational requirements. Chen's investment in his development represented professional commitment to officer advancement that extended far beyond immediate operational needs into long-term strategic planning for military organizational effectiveness and leadership development. The scope of Chen's mentorship became apparent through discussion of future assignment opportunities that would continue developing his strategic thinking, coordination experience that would prepare him for increased responsibility, and professional development that would position him for command roles involving complex asset coordination and strategic planning integration. Her approach to officer development represented systematic preparation for military leadership challenges that required strategic perspective, operational expertise, and coordination capabilities that connected tactical competence to strategic understanding and long-term organizational effectiveness. Martinez approached Chen's office 3 days after the mission debrief, carrying a formal transfer request that would remove him from her operational command, a decision reached after extensive consideration of his professional conduct and the embarrassment his public insubordination had caused during critical mission coordination. His prepared statement acknowledged tactical judgment failures, command protocol violations, and professional behavior that had demonstrated insufficient understanding of strategic coordination requirements and disrespect for expertise he should have recognized regardless of visible rank indicators or personal assumptions about command relationships. Chun reviewed his transfer request while Martinez stood at attention, expecting approval for reassignment to a position where his tactical limitations would create fewer coordination complications and his conventional thinking would be more appropriate for straightforward operational requirements. Instead, she placed the document in a secure filing cabinet and explained her strategy for developing tactical officers whose potential could be enhanced through exposure to strategic coordination challenges, complex operational planning, and mentorship relationships designed to broaden conventional military thinking through systematic professional development. Her refusal of his transfer request came with assignment to additional strategic coordination responsibilities that would provide continued exposure to complex operational planning, asset integration challenges, and tactical decision-making that connected to strategic objectives extending beyond immediate operational requirements. The assignments were designed as progressive development experiences that would systematically enhance his understanding of military operations through coordination with diverse asset types, command authorities operating at different organizational levels, and strategic planning processes that shaped operational preparation months before tactical implementation. Chen's teaching methodology became apparent through discussion of professional development approaches that challenged conventional thinking through complex coordination requirements, enhanced tactical understanding through strategic perspective, and prepared promising officers for increased responsibility through progressive assignment to operations involving multi-asset coordination and strategic planning integration. Her approach identified tactical competence as foundation for strategic development rather than limitation that prevented advancement to complex coordination responsibilities. Subsequent operation planning sessions revealed Chen's systematic approach to officer development through graduated exposure to strategic coordination challenges, tactical decision-making that required understanding of long-term implications, and operational responsibility that connected immediate requirements to strategic objectives. Martinez found himself participating in planning processes that involved intelligence assessment, asset coordination, and strategic timing that required understanding of political, economic, and diplomatic considerations extending far beyond conventional tactical parameters. The tactical principles Chen emphasized during these development sessions focused on strategic thinking that connected immediate decisions to long-term consequences, coordination capabilities that integrated diverse asset types and command authorities, and operational perspective that balanced mission requirements against strategic objectives and resource limitations. Her teaching approach used practical coordination challenges to develop strategic understanding, tactical problems that required innovative solutions, and operational planning that connected theory to practical implementation under real-world constraints. Martinez applied Chen's tactical coordination principles during the next operation assignment with measurable improvements in strategic thinking, asset coordination that demonstrated enhanced understanding of complex operational requirements, and tactical decision-making that reflected strategic perspective rather than conventional approaches limited to immediate tactical considerations. His performance demonstrated capability for strategic coordination that had been developed through systematic exposure to complex operational challenges and professional mentorship focused on capability enhancement rather than criticism of initial limitations. Division Performance Review credited Martinez's improvement to Chen's developmental leadership program that had been implemented to enhance tactical officer preparation for strategic coordination responsibilities, complex operational planning, and command positions involving multi-asset integration and strategic planning requirements. The program represented systematic approach to officer development that connected tactical competence to strategic understanding through progressive assignment and professional mentorship designed to prepare promising officers for increased responsibility. Promotion Board selection identified Martinez for advanced tactical training based on Chen's recommendation, highlighting his demonstrated capacity for strategic thinking development, coordination capability enhancement, and professional growth through challenging assignments and systematic mentorship. His advancement represented successful application of developmental leadership approaches that enhanced tactical officer preparation for strategic coordination responsibilities and complex operational planning requirements that shaped military effectiveness at strategic organizational levels. The advanced training program provided Martinez with systematic exposure to strategic planning processes, joint service coordination protocols, and operational development that prepared officers for command responsibilities involving complex asset integration and strategic coordination. His participation resulted from Chen's assessment of his potential for strategic thinking development and recommendation that his tactical capabilities could be enhanced through specialized training that connected tactical competence to strategic understanding and operational effectiveness. 6 months after completing advanced training, Martinez received assignment to tactical operations coordination involving multi-unit integration, strategic planning participation, and operational responsibility that demonstrated successful application of developmental principles Chun had emphasized during their professional relationship. His assignment involved coordination with diverse asset types, strategic planning integration, and tactical decision-making that required understanding of long-term implications and strategic objectives extending beyond immediate operational requirements. The most significant demonstration of Martinez's professional development occurred during his first independent command assignment, when he encountered a junior officer whose tactical thinking reflected limitations similar to those he had displayed during his initial exposure to Chin's coordination expertise. Recognition of the development opportunity led Martinez to implement mentorship approaches that Chun had used successfully, focusing on strategic perspective enhancement, coordination capability development, and professional growth through challenging assignments and systematic guidance. Martinez's approach to mentoring the junior officer emphasized patience with conventional thinking while providing systematic exposure to strategic coordination challenges, tactical problems that required innovative solutions, and operational planning that connected immediate requirements to long-term strategic objectives. His teaching methodology reflected Chin's developmental principles while adapting to the specific learning needs and professional background of personnel whose potential could be enhanced through structured professional development and progressive responsibility assignment. The successful mentorship relationship that developed demonstrated Martinez's internalization of leadership principles that Chun had modeled during his own professional development, systematic approach to officer advancement through progressive assignment and strategic exposure, and commitment to organizational effectiveness through personnel development that enhanced tactical competence through strategic understanding and operational perspective that connected individual capability to broader military effectiveness. During a chance meeting with Chin 18 months after their original operation, Martinez reported on his mentorship success. With multiple junior officers whose tactical development had been enhanced through application of strategic coordination principles, professional development approaches that connected tactical competence to strategic understanding, and leadership techniques that emphasized capability enhancement through challenging assignments and systematic professional guidance rather than criticism of initial limitations or conventional thinking approaches. Chin's expression showed professional satisfaction as Martinez described implementing developmental leadership approaches that enhanced organizational effectiveness through systematic officer advancement, tactical capability enhancement through strategic perspective, and professional growth that prepared promising personnel for increased responsibility and complex coordination requirements that shaped military effectiveness at strategic organizational levels. The conversation concluded with Chin's acknowledgement that Martinez had successfully completed the developmental cycle from tactical competence through strategic understanding to mentorship capability, demonstrating professional growth that enhanced not only his individual effectiveness but organizational capability through systematic development of subordinate personnel whose advancement contributed to broader military effectiveness and strategic coordination capabilities that shaped operational success across multiple organizational levels and geographic regions.